because of the Cultural War and the mining of their harbors, and they won before the World Court. And, claimed that they're owed $400 million in 1986 money. So that's whatever it is today. Yeah. So what did the U.S. do? First of all, they never showed up even for the hearing. They wouldn't deign even to come. They've never made amends as they were told to. And they then said, we no longer recognize the jurisdiction of the World Court. They will never be taken there again. And of course, they're big proponents of the International Criminal Court, but we're not a member of that either. As I tell my students, human rights, international law, that's for suckers. That's for poor people. The wealthy countries, they're not bound by that. They are bound by the rule of force, and they have the power of force, and that's what they do. And of course, as we know, the International Criminal Court has only prosecuted Africans to a person. No non-African has ever been prosecuted. Again, it's for the poorest of the poor. But this is the world we live in. And again, right now the U.S. is flaunting international law when it comes to Russia, when it comes to Syria, right? Russia was invited in, not the U.S. But we act like we own the world. And that's the one thing I try to point out in my book, as we know, the deal was made between Gorbachev and Reagan that in order for Germany to be reunited, Secretary of State James Baker promised that NATO would never move 1 inch east of Germany. We broke that promise right away, and it's now, of course, NATO is up to the Russian frontier. And we just put Patriot missiles in the Baltics for the first time ever. But then you'll see people, this is incredible to me. You literally read the paper and people will say, Russia is threatening NATO by their troop movements on the Russian border. Right? It would be like if Russia had troops up to the Mexican-American border, and then you'd read in Pravda, the Americans are threatening the Russian troops by troop movements in Texas. It's an outrage. This is incredible thinking, right? But I feel the same way when I hear NPR and say, China is threatening, the Pacific by its movements in the South China Sea. And I think, well, it is the South China Sea. And the same thing with the Persian Gulf. The Iranians, the Persians are trying to take control of the Persian Gulf. Well, seems okay to me. I don't know. But we live in a country that's leadership believes the U.S. must control the entire earth and cannot be challenged anywhere, even within a country's own borders. And that's why the U.S. has really gone out of its way to destroy the idea that the whole UN was based on, that you don't engage in aggressive war, you don't threaten aggressive war, and if you do want to go to war, you have to go to the Security Council. And so the U.S. has gone out of its way to prove it doesn't have to do any of those things. Clinton was really, I think, the most prominent president to do that when he invaded Yugoslavia, which was, of course, a pretty close neighbor of Russia. I mean, can you imagine how we would feel if Russia was bombing for, 72 days, El Salvador or something? I mean, we would feel threatened by that but again, what is good for the goose is not good for the gander. And in the end, what we can control is our own country to some extent. I mean, I understand even that's difficult, but we ostensibly live in a democracy. I don't know how democratic we are anymore, and so it's up to us, obviously, to worry about what we do abroad. And I don't sit up wondering what Putin's doing out there. I'm worried about what we're doing, which is plenty to worry about. And so that's why I wrote this book. In any case, as I make clear, I don't want to, while I certainly will be accused of it, it doesn't meant to be an apology for Putin, but I understand it. I will be called that, but that's fine. None of those things really matter, what people call you or whatever. But that is essentially my point. I'm happy to, after I guess your passing the hat for the library. Happy to talk more about it, but I really appreciate you having me here, and hope you do read and enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. But as promised, I want to talk a little bit about the financial condition